Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Right on time. We're going to give folks a few minutes just to trickle in, but I appreciate everyone showing up right on the dot. While we're waiting on folks, do we have any first timers here who haven't joined a community advocacy board meeting before? Can you go ahead and share an emoji or raise your hand or feel free to speak up? Hi, John. Great. Thanks for joining us. Allegra,
Hi, I'm Allegra Angelosi. Nice to
remember
meet you.
you from our last meeting. Glad to see you back. And David, of course, hello. Thanks for joining us. Got a few more people coming in here. Hi, Lynn. Were you just raising your hand because you're a first timer, or did you have something to share? You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Just a first timer.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you. And of everyone who's joined so far, do we have any folks who are not Maryland residents currently? Because we typically have a lot of Maryland folks represented.
I'm from Colorado.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Lynn.
I'm also from Colorado.
Awesome. Thanks, Gail.
Also me.
Awesome, Serge.
I'm from New Jersey.
Okay. Thanks, Thomas. I'm excited to have some representation from other states today. Thanks for joining us. All right, I think I'll just give people one more minute here and then we can go ahead and start. Oh, I see we've got some people in the chat. Oh, first timers. Awesome. Thanks for saying that. Alrighty, I'm just gonna admit the remaining people here and then we can go ahead and get started. So, and yeah, it is recording already. So just disclaimer that this is being recorded so we can go ahead and share it with folks afterwards who may not be able to join us right now. So my name is Stephanie Moumoine. I'm the Director of Communications and Sustainability at Neighborhood Sun. And we have been having 4 quarterly community advocacy board meetings this year. So very excited. It was the first year we've had one every quarter and they have been going great. So we're going to keep sending out surveys to get feedback from you about what you'd like to see us talk about in these meetings. So this topic today is focused on solar advocacy, which is the main thing people were requesting in the survey to get help for. So we've reached out to one of our community partners and we have a guest speaker from that organization who's going to join, and I'll be introducing her in a bit. We're just going to go through some company updates first. So thanks for taking the time to be here. Again, the Community Advocacy Board is an opportunity for communication to really be a two-way street between us and our subscribers. We want to hear, your feedback, your concerns, your requests. Our Sun Engine platform is fully customizable. That's one of the most beautiful things about it. And we're constantly iterating on it based on the feedback of our team and our subscribers. So if there's something that you'd like to see, you can let us know, and that should be feasible to implement. So we really can get a good turnaround time on new updates. So we'll be sharing a few of those tech updates later in the presentation as well, so you know what we've been working on. So first, we're going to start off with an intro to Gary Skolnick, our founder and CEO, who has been a longtime clean energy advocate in Maryland. So I'm going to let him tell you a bit about his story and how he's been advocating since long before Neighborhood Sun. So we all have a lot to learn from him.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I wore the same shirt I have in that picture, so
Oh,
I
that's
guess
so funny.
easy to identify me.
Great. And can you tell about where this photo was taken as well?
Well, yes, this was taken outside of the EPA at a rally a couple of years ago in the summer, I think, where we were trying to get them to implement the regulations to reduce pollution from industry, and they had been delaying, but then they did finally implement those regulations. And we're fortunate that our headquarters is in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is not too far from downtown DC. Makes it easy for us to participate. So I'm happy to talk through my story a little bit. Stephanie, how much time should I take? I could take as much or as little as you.
You've got like 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. So I actually started, my prior career was in journalism, but in the late 90s, I started working at Greenpeace, and I was a media officer on the climate change team. And we were doing events all around the world, all around the country, and I got my start in activism by looking at my own backyard. I lived in Maryland, and I thought Maryland was a progressive state. What are we doing to fight climate change and to promote clean energy? And I was astonished to find that Maryland had almost nothing happening. We had a tax or credit for solar, but it was relatively small and it was actually expiring. So I did something that every one of you can do, which is I just got in my car and went to the Capitol and started talking to people. I mean, the first thing I did was, I guess I had the advantage of being at Greenpeace. I knew what some policies were that could be implemented. And the policy I wanted to implement was called Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS, which requires a certain amount of clean energy as a minimum from any company that sells electricity in the state. So I went to Annapolis and didn't know a thing about how the legislative process works. Looking back, it's kind of funny at my hubris and some of the things I thought, but it takes a little bit of hubris to think that you can make change. And it's really the only way it happens. The environmental groups did not want to support this at first because they already had their agenda laid out for the session. Maryland only has session 3 months a year, so everything was all set. But I was lucky enough to run into Mike Tidwell, who at the time was just about to start Chesapeake Climate Action Network. The two of us teamed up, and it took 3 years, but we eventually did get the RPS passed. And it's, I think this is kind of a illustration of how this often works. At first they laugh at you, right? So I went there and people were like, who is this guy? Like, nobody knew who I was. I didn't know anybody. And they kind of laughed at me, I have to admit. But then they started taking me seriously when I was able to get some coalition partners going, and we were able to start generating postcards and letters and some lobbying by grassroots. They tried to then figure out a way to kind of cut off the RPS by giving us an alternative package that would have helped clean energy, but it was not nearly the same. And then finally, they started fighting. And we, at one point, the chief of staff of the Speaker of the House of Maryland was in a meeting with us and commented that we were talking about all the opposition to the RPS bill. And he picked up a phone book and he said, "Is there anyone in this phone book who's not against the bill?" Because it seems like everybody, all the industry, and even companies that had nothing to do with selling electricity. So like the small business group, industrial businesses, the unions were against it. So we had a lot of work to do, and I ended up having to make some compromises and looking at the bigger picture, not trying to get 100% of what we wanted, but we eventually got the bill passed, and it was only a 7.5% RPS, which is at this, today sounds like a joke, but it was the first step. It's the proverbial, camel's nose under the tent. Once we got in there, that 7.5%, just like the opposition actually warned, they were right. That 7.5% became 50 and eventually 100%, and we added much more robust requirements for solar. And before this bill passed, Maryland's solar industry was characterized as somebody as three guys in a truck. Now it employs hundreds of people with industries, with companies spread out across the state. And then, of course, we added community solar in 2015, and that brought about the start of Neighborhood Sun as a way to bring solar to everybody, not just a select few. So some of the lessons I learned, I also did in a prior part of my career also work on Capitol Hill. And I really prefer working at the state level. And I think you all will enjoy it a lot more as well, because at the state level, you actually get to talk to the lawmakers. So your state senator, your state representative, they actually will meet with you. Whereas generally on Capitol Hill, you're talking to aides all the time. You rarely meet with the actual legislator. So I felt like at the state level, you can actually get to know people and get things done. Like by the time this was all said and done, I knew every lobbyist on the energy, in the energy world. Either they agreed with me or not, but I knew them. I knew the lay of the land, and it's something that you can do in any of the states you're in, whether it's Colorado, New Jersey, or still here in Maryland. It was really important to build coalitions. And I think for solar, one of the things that we have against us is that it's viewed as something for like the elite, or it's not just for everybody. The pushback you see in a state like California is that, they believe that low and moderate income people are helping to subsidize solar panels on wealthier people's houses. And so it's really important to have things like community solar, which is actually for everybody, not just for a few, but to get that kind of wide coalition to include social justice and equity activists. They bring a lot to the table. We always get the faith groups are really important, labor. And so, getting that widespread coalition makes a lot of difference, because every legislator is going to react differently. Some will just go on the environmental and they'll be fine. Those who have 100% scorecard rating from the League of Conservation Voters, they'll be with you no matter what. But some need to hear from their constituents or need to hear from a group that they're really close to in order to get them over the line. And when you also, that's another thing about the state level is, it's a small district. So if you have a legislator who's from a district well, a legislator who's on the fence, you can actually go to their district, you can figure out who the bigger players are in that district, you can talk to them and get them on board with your bill, and then they will help influence the legislator. That's a lot easier to do at the state level than it is at the federal level. You know, another little secret on grassroots stuff is it's a very easy thing to do is just have people click on a online petition. That pretty much doesn't work because the legislators, at least in my experience, never really buy into that. What did work is having people write handwritten letters. And you can have like letter writing campaigns. It's, of course, the volume's going to be a lot lower, but in my experience, the legislators actually read those letters because they were handwritten personal letters from a constituent. So that really gets through to them. Of course, you always have to make the economic argument, which is easy to do. But you know, I think it's one of the most rewarding experiences I've had in my life is helping to pass legislation that made my little corner of the world better. And I think everybody can participate in that. At the state level, it really is the lab of democracy. And so I'd encourage you guys to do that. And I'll stay on, of course, if there's any questions for me at the end of the call.
Thanks so much, Gary. Appreciate you sharing that. So one thing that we hear a lot for people who want to refer is just which projects are we currently enrolling for, and you know, which utility areas can they refer folks in that are actually going to have availability. So I've got that for you all right here, and I'm just going to walk you through it. So we break down subscribers into either income qualified or non-income qualified. So when you see LMI, that means low or moderate income, and those folks have to go through a verification process that varies based on state in order to be eligible for that higher discount. But we highly recommend everyone, you know, consider whether or not they're eligible and go for it if they can. So in the Pepco utility territory, we've got Free Reign that is supposed to be live towards the end of the year. They're currently experiencing a few delays with interconnection, but that's expected to be resolved very soon. So LMI folks are eligible for a 20% discount for Free Reign, and that's a really cool community solar project that's using a portion of a horse farm actually for the array. And then in the BGE territory, we've got Henderson Hopkins, which is also a very cool project on the rooftop of a school. And this one is 100% of its energy is being allocated to folks who qualify as LMI, and they are eligible for a 25% discount. So in Maryland right now, it's looking like it's all LMI. Then we've got New Jersey. We've got 20% savings available for both LMI and non-LMI folks in New Jersey across the following utilities: Orange and Rockland, PSEG, and JCPL. And then in Colorado, we've got Griffiths 2 that's still got some available shares, and that's a 10% discount for anyone. So that one does not have any income qualifications. And then ECA Greeley has LMI availability with a 25% discount. And McKee Ranch is, again, a non-LMI project, and that one has a 10% discount available for anyone. And then we've also got some very new projects in New York that are in the National Grid territory that have a 10% discount available for income qualified folks. And I see some of our team members adding in some notes in the chat, so feel free to check those out as well. Thank you, Christina and Cara. And then next up, we've got some notes about how community solar changes towards the end of the year. So none of us really like the days getting shorter in the winter, and that affects solar panels as well as us. So that limits the generation that's possible because of the shorter days and less sunlight. So in the winter, your community solar credits might be smaller. And the best thing you can do if your utility allows that is to select for indefinite rollover. So that's currently available for BG and Pepco. You can check with your utility if they allow it, or reach out to us if you need help. And that'll allow your summer credits to roll over in the winter. So in the summer, you're going to have more credits when the days are longer, and the automatic rollover sort of allows that to all balance out without you having to worry about it. Another thing that we recommend is to review your annual allocation. So we don't have any way to know exactly how much energy you're using each month. So we just know the solar credits, and those are determined based on an average or an estimation of your consumption. And so if we're not actually covering as much as possible of your utility bill, then you're missing out on savings. So we would suggest just reviewing your bill and making sure that your community solar share covers as much of your bill as possible. And that's something to typically do in the spring or fall. And you can reach out to us if you need help with that as well. So we've got a few recent updates. Gary was featured on a Clean Power Hour podcast. So you can hear a bit more about his story. I know he gave us a summary here, but there's some additional information in the podcast, and he speaks a lot about the community solar market as a whole. So I'll be sending this presentation and these links in an email afterwards, so you can check that out. We've got some new affiliations. We welcomed a new partner organization, Towson Unitarian Universalist Church, and we've got a new commercial subscriber, Rochester Regional Health Systems in New York. And we've got some more community partnerships in the works right now that we will announce in future meetings when they're official. There are also some recent blogs that you can check out. If you want to learn more about our team, there's one blog that gives some background on the executives who lead our team, so the C-suite. And then we've also got a blog where we turn some of the more negative reviews of community solar into learning experiences. So a lot of the time when people are upset, it might be from a misunderstanding or a misconception about how community solar works. So we tackle a few of those myths in the blog, and that might be helpful for everyone to check out. We've got the state of community solar. This is as of Q2 of 2024. So as the year ends, we'll get more information and share those next year. But you can see New York is still very much in the lead. So next, I'll take you through a few of the tech updates that I mentioned earlier. So this year we integrated AI into our Sun Engine platform, which will make the enrollment process a lot easier and more efficient. So you might remember having shared a utility bill, which we then review to get some of your information and make sure that it's all matched up correctly. And now AI will help us do that a lot more efficiently. We've also got a new account view in My Solar. So if you log into your My Solar and click up here at your account and then look at your solar credits, you can view your total solar credit amount per production period, as well as just see your savings in this column very clearly by month. So that's helpful to break down your savings. You can also see your total savings just on the home screen, as well as your environmental impact. So we recommend checking out your My Solar page if you haven't and are looking for more information. We will have Kristen talking later about just general solar advocacy tips, but we also want to make sure everyone knows how to refer folks to community solar specifically. So again, if you go to your My Solar page, on the right side of the screen, you'll see this text that's in the middle here, and you've got two options. So you want to make sure you use these specific options that I'm telling you to ensure you get credit for the referral, which will get you the gift card. So rather than just sending information, having someone sign up separately, you want to make sure they're going to use your referral code. So the way to do that is either to click on this orange Solar Advocate button, and that will take you to a page where it pre-populates your personal referral code and your information, and you just type in your friend's name and email address, and then we'll do the rest. Or if you want to send them a direct link to sign up, you can copy this link below to your clipboard where it says share this link to your subscriber referral page, and that will send them a sign up link where it automatically has your referral code embedded. So you will get credit and they will just look like they're signing up regularly. So for each referral you make that's successful where they enroll, you'll see a little solar panel added to your farm here below in the little green pasture. And once they start getting credits, you'll receive a gift card as well. And these Tango gift cards are applicable to a wide variety of stores, and you can also choose nonprofits to donate your gift card to. So that's why we really like using Tango gift card, because it leaves those options available. So you can always reach out to us if you need help referring, but the easiest way to do it is through your My Solar page. So we've got just an update about consolidated billing since there have been some policy changes, and I know we're all very excited for that to be implemented. Currently, it is supposed to be implemented by January of 2026 in Maryland, so that will be rolling out next year, and we'll keep you updated on those changes as we get information as well. And next up, we've got Kristen Harbison, the political director of Maryland League of Conservation Voters, who's going to be sharing some helpful tips and insights about how to be a better clean energy advocate. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that Kristen can start sharing from hers and click through the slides. Is that all right, Kristen?
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. And feel free to add your questions, whether it's about, you know, the Neighborhood Sun updates or Kristen's presentation in the chat, and we'll go through those.
I think I'm stopping. I think I'm. Are you seeing my? Are you seeing my
Yes.
screen?
Mm.
Are you seeing the one with the presentation?
I see your background of some beautiful rocks with light shining.
That is
through
not
the
what the one I
water.
was wanting to do. So hold on a second.
Okay, no worries.
That's so just as a, but while I'm figuring this out, no, that's not the, is that now you see
There
my?
it is.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just so again, I'm Kristen Harbison. I'm the political director for Maryland League of Conservation Voters, and a proud member of Neighborhood Sun. I started working in this space about 9 years ago, working and have worked on most of the environmental legislation, including some of the things that Gary mentioned that have been that we've passed in the last 9 years. For people who don't know Maryland League of Conservation Voters, we call ourselves the political voice for the environment. We work towards a healthy environment for everyone in Maryland. We do it through advocacy, we do it through education, and we do it through accountability. We work on passing legislation during the legislative session. We are pretty well known for our legislative scorecard that Gary mentioned when you talk about people getting 100% on the scorecard. Which we send out every year. And then we work, but we also have the ability to work in elections so that so we are both a 501c3 and a 501c4. So we are also, in addition to being an educational nonprofit, we also have a political arm. And I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly so there's time for questions. And please, if I start saying something that doesn't make sense, please throw your hand up. So just as a brief rule, and this is going to be true, I know that there are people from Colorado, where my brother and sister-in-law live, and New Jersey as well. And so the first couple of slides this is the Maryland calendar. I think it's probably pretty similar for Colorado and New Jersey, but this is specifically Maryland. And just so we have a 90-day session, and day 1 to 69, the legislation goes through all of these steps. It's literally what we call first reader. is it is literally given a bill number and a committee assignment. It gets a bill hearing. It goes to subcommittee where it's discussed and negotiated, and they make a recommendation for passing it out of committee. It passes out, gets a vote in the committee. It goes back to the floor of the House of the chamber it started from. They can make amendments on the floor of the floor, and then it goes to third reader where they actually vote on the bill. All of this happens for every single bill, or at any given point in this place, a bill can die. There are 1,000 ways a bill can die, and only one way a bill can pass. But successful bills go through all this process. And they happen during the first 69 days of the legislative session. Whether it's the House or the Senate or both, they're going through the same process. The trick is that days 70 to 90, you're doing exactly the same thing all over again in the next chamber. It passes, the bills from the House go to the Senate, the bills from the Senate go to the House, and they have to get through all of those same steps before they can go to the governor's desk, and they have to pass both chambers exactly the same. It's kind of madness, which is one of the reasons I want to show both the process. For people who don't live it, it seems ridiculous, and it absolutely is. But so these are the steps that you have to go through. And again, at every single step in this, bills move forward or they die. I like to think of it as passing legislation as a 5-act play. The first thing to know about in any play is the characters. The legislators, and I liked hearing Gary talk about his experience with it, because he's been a tremendous advocate. It's nice to be reminded of all the work that he's done. But the legislator is the hero and the champion. And it's important to remember that in Maryland, and I believe in both in Colorado and in New Jersey as well, we have part-time legislators. They are there for 90 days. They live away from their family for the most part. They're away from their jobs, they're away from their children, they're away from their pets. And they've made a decision to do this, and they're making not a small sacrifice for this. People have to change jobs, or they lose their jobs because of the decision to run for office. So this is a real commitment they make, and it's important to remember that when you're talking to legislators, because it's important to remember that you're talking to people, and that they are first and foremost, when they're talking to you, public servants who are there to do good work, whether or not you agree with them. And the other thing to remember is they are not experts in your subject. They're probably experts in something, but they're not experts. Probably not experts in what you're experts in. But they are absolutely trying their best. And one of the things to remember is that your role in this is to be the expert to help them understand what they don't know, so that they can make good decisions. So that's the legislator, the hero and the champion. Don't forget the staff, whether you're talking to the legislator or you're talking to the staff. I came to this job as from being a legislative staff for 5 years. They are your best friend, or they're the gatekeeper for the legislator, or and they can be your guide. They could be your best friend or not. So talk to the legislative aides, because they're going to be the last people that the legislator talks to before they make decisions. And they're going to be the ones who they're talking to the most. A lot of legislative aides are young. They're students or just graduated. Some of them are older, or they're in their second career. They're also working very hard, late nights, really committed to the position. They're using it. It's a strange job, I say, having been it for 5 years. It's a really peculiar job, and it's one that is terribly important to the way to having the legislation pass smoothly. They're the connection between the constituents and the legislators. They're also not going to be subject matter experts. Again, that's you. They are also trying their best and are also public servants. But then there's you, right? And this is where, and your job, again, your job is to be the storytellers. Legislators work for you. They have to listen to you. It's their job. And so your job is to tell them what they need to know to make good decisions. For community solar, thinking about community solar and energy legislation specifically, some of you might be actual energy experts, but it doesn't matter whether you are or not. I think people make a mistake of thinking that they have to be experts to talk to legislators. And that is absolutely not true. What you need to know, what they need to know from you is your story and why what you're talking about is important to you. That is the thing that they cannot get from anybody other than you. And they absolutely need to hear it. So you can talk to them about what community solar is, why you chose it. People working in the community solar space, people get confused about what it means. Even though most of the legislators in the Maryland General Assembly at this point have voted on it, they still don't totally understand it. They don't understand what the difference is between community solar and rooftop solar. So talking about why you chose to be part of the community solar family, what it means for you. Talk about your personal experience with saving money or with whatever the reason is that you voted for, why you chose to participate. Whatever your reason is important and something that they need to hear. Again, your story is absolutely essential. The other thing that legislative advocates is really important resources for the legislators to be able to ask questions. It's important to build the relationship as much as you can. So they know that if they have a question about something, what you've talked to them, that they feel comfortable reaching out to you and being like, hey, I just got a thing and I know this is something that's important to you. Can you tell me more? It's a relationship. It's not just a one-way thing. You're talking to them, but they also will need to be able to reach out to talk to you. So building that trust, that trusted relationship. And so that's all sort of the preamble to the 5-Act play. And when you're talking about any kind of legislation, planning is important. Identifying both what the problem is, what the solution is, and the context. We're looking for, I worked on the community solar bill to pass the community solar permanent program. One of the things that we identified as the problem was the lack of consolidated billing. That was a major issue in the legislation. And so we planned that, we identified the problem, we figured out the solution, what it would be. We identified where it had been done before, and talked about, and were able to get all the information we needed about what we were asking for before we even began working on the bill, before we were able to talk about preparation is really important. But again, not everybody needs to be an expert. If you don't have all these answers, that's fine. This is where the coalition work that Gary was talking about is so important, because it's through everybody's actions and working together to tell the story and to get the information they need that this work gets done. Every single 2,000 bills go through the General Assembly every year. Every single one of them has a whole crowd of people working behind it. Nothing can be done alone. Nothing can be done alone. So then you have when you're actually talking to the legislators, the idea is just, honestly, just be good people. Remember that you're talking to people. There's a sense that legislators, it's easy for us to think about legislators and politicians as being somehow villains. They're vilified in the media, they're vilified in popular culture, but they are, again, our community members, our neighbors, they're public servants, and they're the ones who are there to make the change. So just remember, be respectful, remember that you're talking to people, and that they don't know what you know, and they want to learn. So keep the good positive, listen to what they have to say, listen to the questions they ask, and be sure that if you don't have the answer, that's fine. That's actually better. Sometimes when I'm meeting with the legislator, I choose, there'll be something like, even if I know the answer, or I think I know the answer, I'm like, oh, let me get back to you on that. Because that again builds the trust. It lets me get back to them with the information to create the relationship of being a trusted resource where when I get them the information, it's right. Right? It's so listen to what they're asking and be sure to, if you say, I'll get back to you, be sure you do it. But also there's a little bit of research that goes back into it. Understand who you're talking to and what's important to them. When we talk about, we tend to get really excited about the things that make it why things are important to us, which is great. And again, your story is the most important thing. But when I go into legislation, if I go into lobbying, going into a lobby meeting, if I, as the environmental lobbyist, am making an environmental case for something, I've probably pretty much lost. Because if I have to convince them on that issue, if I'm convincing them on the environmental issue, they're already going to be with me. So the question is finding what are the things that what are the things that people who aren't with you automatically, people for whom the environment or climate change isn't already something that they believe in, right? Are they people who care, is the economic income aspect the most important? Talk about why this is money saving for you. Talk about why this is better for the community. Talk about why this is the jobs it's creating. Talk about talk about the health impacts. Talk about why it's better for the community health. There are other ways of thinking about every issue to identify how to make it the thing. It's not, I kind of want to try sometime to try to get through a legislative session and never mention climate change. And just to see if I can do it, because again, I want to be able to make the economic argument. In Maryland, we are facing a huge budget crisis. Every dollar is they're going to be trying to spend every dollar 5 times because there's such a crunch. And so anything costs money, anything that increases cost to ratepayers is going to be something that's heavily scrutinized. So our job is to show why what we're doing is better for the society. And this can get really tricky, but I think that it's important to listen again to what is important to other people, not just what is important to other people about the issue, and how can you make that connection? So plan ahead, plan what you're going to say, prepare to be brief, may always be sure to ask for what you want, and follow up afterwards. That is terribly important. Know what other people are going to say, know the opposition. What do people are going to, and don't make their argument for them. They have to make their own argument, but know what they're going to say so you can anticipate it and try to, you can talk to what they're going to say and make the argument against it before they actually say it. Don't ever say, well, I know you're going to hear from this other person that this is true. You're like, no, actually, but you want to pre-but the argument. You want to tell them what your side before anybody else can get to them, if that makes sense. When you get to the bill hearing, you cannot win a bill hearing. You can only die or survive. Bills die at bill hearings all the time when people, if people don't handle them in a way if people can bill hearing. It's theater, but it's very important theater. So remember to be brief, get in, get out, get in, be brief, get out. You want your bill hearing to be as quick as possible. You never, ever want to be the one that's causing people to be late for dinner. Legislators have, especially later in session, they'll have 6, 7, 8-hour bill hearings. You don't want to be the one who's causing those long hearings. You don't want to be the one that's causing the delay. So try to be as brief and succinct as possible. Make the case you need to make as fast as possible. You can always follow up afterwards because that's really where the real work is done. Also remember, all questions are smart, even the dumb ones. Thank you, Senator. What a great question. Or thank you, Senator. Delegate, that's a terrific question. Let me get back to you about that. Are perfectly good answers, but always every question is smart, even the dumb ones. Answer any questions, do a circle around, get the votes, talk to people, say that, make sure that you get confirmed votes. Don't take for granted that anybody's going to be with you or against you. Talk to everybody. Even people with 100% votes on the scorecard. Sometimes we have to work to get them where we need them to be. They're going to be probably with us, but we might need them to be a little bit more, a little bit stronger in their support to actually move a bill forward. And when Gary was talking about, needing to make compromises, that is certainly part of the process. Nobody gets everything they want. So keep your eye on the prize. There's a difference between what you want and what you need. And so keeping your eye on what you need, don't give up what you want before you have what you want, but don't need before you have to. But remember what is the most important thing? How can you make progress? Where can you give? And where can't you? And that's fine. If there's a place where you're like, this is after this point, I cannot go, know that where that place is, so you can make those decisions. When you get to the floor debates is theater. You don't have any role in it particularly, except making sure the people who are the legislators have the information that they need to perform the ballet that is the second and third reader floor. You go from there to the second chamber, which is exactly the same thing, but faster. So then you're going to learn the lessons from the first chamber. And again, pretend like it's brand new, but it is you do have to, you've already been through it once. You're going to have to go, and it becomes much faster again. The first part of the session is 69 days. The second chamber is 20. The bill signing, if you get to the end and there's a bill signing, don't forget to take your bow. That's means a lot to the legislators. It means a lot to the community members to be able to say this is important and look at what we did together. Stay vigilant. Victories are always, both victories and defeats don't always last. You have to make sure that you're protecting against the future. So this is, we're always looking for what the next fight, making sure that the victories we pass don't get rolled back. Yeah, and so that's it. And I guess the biggest thing I want to say is that your job is not to change anybody's mind. Your job is to give people the information and the space to change their own mind. You cannot change anybody's mind, but you can help them change their own. So that's it. And I think I went through this probably very quickly. I hope it made sense. But if you have any questions, I'm here for questions for as long as you have them. And if you have any questions later, this is my contact information. So yeah, that's what I got. So thanks for having me on this. This is a great group.
Thank you so much for being here, Kristen, and sharing your expertise. I love the way it was crafted as, a story with the sort of archetypes and everything. I have never heard anyone put it that way before, and I think it was really helpful.
Happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that I said that didn't make sense.
Yeah, we've had some questions about community solar things in the chat, so I'll wait to address those and just leave some time if anyone wants to go ahead and unmute themselves and ask Kristen a question or put it in the chat and I can read it aloud.
Hi, Kristen, it's David Saunders. I may say to everyone that your summary was terrific, and that's what happened, having witnessed it with SB1, where we literally kicked out the third-party energy suppliers, which had a big problem for Neighborhood Sun, because every time we come to Neighborhood Sun, they say, oh, well, we use Clear Energy or Green Mountain Energy or one of the other Texas bandits. but you really did that so very nicely. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks. And SB1, that bill this past year was really interesting. And it was also really interesting, especially for community solar. Part of it is, again, people don't necessarily understand community solar. They don't know what it means. What they know is that people, there were two different kinds of people that were knocking on their doors saying, hey, let me sell you green energy. One set of people that were doing this were the people who were selling community solar, which would give the people a discount and save them money and would, for actual clean energy projects that they could drive to and wave and see their solar panels, right? There are those people. And then there were people who were willing to take you for a ride, who were not selling good products, who were not selling actual energy. They were selling RECs, and so the confusion between those two was really tricky. And one of the things, I was not working on this bill on SB1, but I was working to try to clarify community solar and make sure that was not, that people understood that these were two different things and these were two different issues. Because that was really helpful. So I appreciate all the work that you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and a note on that, just that's why, our relationships with our community partner organizations on the ground and referrals from current subscribers are really the best way to get the word out about community solar, because of those, barriers to trust that exist for very valid reasons, but are causing some confusion around community solar that and fear that doesn't need to be there. So that's also why it's important to sit down with friends or neighbors and kind of explain through your experience, because that's the best thing to get anyone to trust it, is just to know that someone they trust is already doing it.
Yeah, and just as put a finer point on it, and again, I apologize to the Coloradans and New Jerseyans, but for Maryland, I mentioned we have a monster budget crisis coming in, and there's a lot of pressure around energy, the energy market. Where are we getting our energy? Are we keeping fossil fuels? Are we expanding fossil fuels? Are we getting rid of fossil fuels, which is what, of course, many of us want? When we don't have enough solar, we don't have enough renewable energy, right? So what this is going to be looking at is people are going to be looking at solar projects, and there's a lot of tension. Well, we don't actually want them here. So the more the legislators, especially if you live in, actually, it doesn't matter where you live. No matter where you live, call your legislators and talk to them about your experience with community solar and why it's important to you, because they will be getting all kinds of pressure from people who are wanting to say, this isn't really what we need. What we need is gas.
Thanks, Kristen. Are there any other questions for Kristen about advocacy or, her organization? I know they have a lot of events on their website that people can check out in the future, opportunities to either sign on to petitions or just to know about different legislative events happening in the community that they can support. And a note also that there is a League of Conservation Voters organization in most states. So I would recommend checking out the one for your state for folks who are not in Maryland. And yeah, go ahead, Kristen. Sorry.
I was gonna say there are 30, I think 31 states with leagues like ours. Colorado and New Jersey both have spectacularly strong. I'm always chasing New Jersey because they seem to be they do really good work. So yeah, if you're in Colorado, check out Colorado Conservation. If you're in New Jersey, check out New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. And those of you in Maryland, we'd love to see you at Maryland LCV.
Yes, and my apologies. In the past, it's really been mostly Maryland folks, but I'm really grateful to see people from other states, because the goal of the Community Advocacy Board is really to have representation from all states, from all utilities, and from all income levels, so that we have people who can share their struggles based on where they're located or what they're dealing with, and then we can learn from that and not just be catering to you know, our sort of typical Maryland subscribers. So happy to see everyone on here from other states, and we'll be sure to keep future CAB meetings geared towards those other states as well. And yes, exactly. Thank you, Gary. I was just about to say that if anyone has ideas for speakers, if you yourself are an expert in anything or are involved, you know, with an organization who you think would be a good speaker or presenter for another CAB meeting, please reach out to our email. I'll put it in the chat here. You can reach out to me directly, or you can message our stakeholders matter at neighborhoodsun.solar inbox with any suggestions for presenters or to volunteer yourself. And also if you have hot topics, you know, in Colorado or New Jersey or other states that you want to see highlighted in future meetings, please let us know. We'll keep sending out surveys to hear about what you're interested in learning about, and you know, doing our best to make that happen. So we really want to share the content that you're interested in learning about, and also advocacy opportunities like we did today. So if anyone has additional questions, I'm just going to look in the chat real quick. So yeah, Allegra, that's a great question. Allegra asked if we're working on greener sourcing of materials needed to create solar panels. So just a disclaimer that Neighborhood Sun does not own the farms or the solar panels. We are sort of the intermediary between the developer and the utility and the subscriber. So we certainly encourage our developer partners to, you know, explore these topics and also recycle their solar panels at the end of life. But we are not owning any of the solar panels, so we don't have any influence, unfortunately, on the sourcing specifically of those panels. If anyone wants that information, happy to connect you with the developer of your solar farm so you can ask them about it. And another note from the chat earlier, someone asked about New Jersey consolidated billing, and that will be happening at the beginning of 2025. And then the Maryland consolidated billing will have to be implemented by 2026. So those are going to be on a rolling basis, you know, utility by utility, but we will keep you all updated with that information as we get it. And hopefully it'll all happen soon, because I know we're all hoping for that, as it makes everyone's lives a lot easier, both on the subscriber end and on our end. So thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Kristen, for presenting. I hope everyone found this helpful. I'll be sharing a recording of the presentation as well as the slides and some of the links that I talked about in the presentation in an email later this week. So keep an eye out for that.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kristen. Bye, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Go on now. Thank you.